At some point, decline stops sounding like a problem and starts sounding reasonable. It's presented as normal in society, something as women is expected to quietly accept. I don't accept that, not for myself and not quietly for other women. Yes, biology takes its course. Knees resist stairs, the back needs management, energy isn't spent freely anymore, it's allocated. It shows up, not suddenly, but in one direction, unfortunately. The difference is not in what changes, it's in what gets accepted. And that line decides what you keep and what you lose. This is why some women stay strong as they age and others simply don't. Well, a few days ago, I had a conversation with two old friends. Two women, same age, similar past, the kind of women who lived fully, movement, energy, curiosity, a certain way of being in this world. Now, they're in very different places. One still trains hard. She climbs, plans things that require effort, stays curious, engaged. She adjusts when needed, but she keeps requiring something from herself. The other has started working around things. Training becomes lighter, less explosive, more careful. Movement becomes selective. I need to be careful, says she, shows up more and more in her life. And nothing about it sounded like a decision, just a quiet shift. What stood out was not the difference. It was how normal the second path sounded. Nothing about it felt like a decision. It sounded like something just happened. No resistance, no questioning, just a quiet acceptance that this is what happens now. Later that day, I came across something from Stacy Sims. She said that fragility in women is expected. Not observed, mind you, expected. That word stayed with me, because the issue is not the biology, it's the agreement. Once something is expected, it becomes allowed. Once it's allowed, it becomes normal. And once it's normal, it stops being questioned. That's how the line moves, quietly. And once it moves, it rarely moves back on its own. Strength doesn't disappear overnight. It disappears where it's no longer required. You lose what you don't use. If you think doing everything right will make it easier, well, sorry to say, it won't. I am not saying this from a place where everything works perfectly. Well, I do a lot. Training is consistent, nutrition is structured, sleep is protected, stress management is my top priority. And still, the results are modest. Muscle builds slowly, strength improves, but the moment I pause, it fades quickly. My HRT is working, but not to the fullest. Effort is high, feedback is low. And that is exactly where many women start to lower their standard, not because they're lazy, because the return feels unfair. This is not control, this is effort meeting reality, and the reality is harsh. This does not get easier with age. It takes more to maintain, and the return is getting smaller. So the question changes. Not how to fix it, but how to respond to it without quietly lowering your standard. For me, that comes down to something simple. Test your limits honestly. Respect what's real, reject what's just assumed. Well, a small example here. I've tested something recently that used to be my normal. A rave. Late night, loud music, physically demanding stay. It's in a different way, but I went and I partied hard. The result was very clear. The cost is too high. Poor sleep leading into miserable next day with low energy, mood swings, and food cravings. So for me, it was not worth it. That's a tested limit, not an assumed one. Not every limit is there to be broken. Some are there to be understood. But the difference is I've tested it. I don't accept limits I haven't tried. And I don't fight limits that prove themselves real, because without that, it becomes very easy to slide into something that looks reasonable but slowly reduces what's possible for you. And this is not something you win. It's something you maintain. If you don't set your own standard, it will quietly lower itself. What I'm describing is not a theory you understand in your head. It has to be tested in real condition with your body, not in planning, not in thinking, not in visualizing, in something that actually puts pressure on you. At some point, thinking about it is just not enough. You need something that answers you back with real feedback. And before you go further, check this. When was the last time you challenged yourself in a way that felt slightly beyond what you could comfortably handle? Not what you think, what you've actually avoided. Pick one thing and test it this week. No redesign, just exposure. That's what I use Misogi for. Controlled challenge, controlled hardship. A place where you stop guessing and see what actually holds. Not to prove something, but to remove what isn't real. Because without something that tests you, it becomes very easy to believe a version of yourself that was never verified. At some point, you need to know where you actually stand. Not what you think, not what you intend, what holds under pressure. I built a short assessment for that exact reason, to help you see whether you are still testing yourself or just managing yourself. The link is below. Because this is not about becoming exceptional. It's about not disappearing into something you never chose.